Thank you, Dean. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I traveled today from Olympia, where, as Dean mentioned, I am a user experience designer for Anthrotech. And before my time with Anthrotech, I worked for the Washington Secretary of State's office as a design fellow. And I was charged with improving the design and usability of election materials. And it was because of my background in both user experience and the world of elections that I was invited in February to the Accessible Elections Design Workshop by Whitney Quisenberry. And at the workshop, we were charged with coming up with new solutions to improve the voting experience for all citizens. So what does that mean, and why does it matter? Well, as you know, we just held a federal election, and I'd like you to reflect back on your voting experience. Think to when you got registered to vote, and then how you gathered information on the candidates and the different issues. Do you remember when you received your ballot in the mail, and when you voted your ballot, and then how you got it back to the elections office? All of these actions encompass the voting experience. And at the workshop, we wanted to explore the voting experience from the eyes of people with disabilities. So let's imagine you have a disability. Imagine if you had low vision or if you had a mobility impairment. What sort of barriers would you have encountered in your effort to cast your vote? For many in our country, the current voting experience does not accommodate their needs. And during the workshop, we came up with some wonderful ideas. A little later, I'd like to share one with you. My biggest takeaway from the workshop was its methodology, structure, and design. And I'd like to share some details about that with you now, because I think you'll find it valuable. As user experience professionals, we are consistently asked to work with a group of diverse stakeholders to develop solutions on subject matter that is out of our area of expertise. And this workshop provided a methodology for doing that. So first, let me cover a few high-level details about the structure of the workshop. 32 people were invited to the workshop, and all with very diverse backgrounds. We had people with disabilities, accessibility advocates, elections officials, voting technology experts, consultants, designers, and user experience professionals. The diverse backgrounds really encouraged different perspectives and lots of ideas. One of my fellow attendees had this to say about the workshop. Having no experience on the topic of accessibility in elections, I was both terrified and eager to learn. And I share Jared's experience with you today because that's how I felt as I boarded the plane for Atlanta. I was really concerned about my lack of knowledge in the area of accessibility issues. And this is why the organizers convened such a diverse set of participants to come to the workshop. What I brought to the table was my experience as a consultant, as a user experience professional, as a problem solver, and as a designer. It was okay if I lacked knowledge in the area of accessibility issues, because others that were there would make up for where my knowledge lacked. All the participants were pre-assigned to one of 4 creative teams that would come up with ideas around one area of the voting experience. So Team 1, preparing to vote, Team 2, voting in person, Team 3, voting remotely, and Team 4, marking the ballot. And at a few different points over the course of the 2-day workshop, participants were asked to leave their team and go to join another team. And this was so that they could generate ideas and new perspective in a different area of the elections experience. The workshop was run like a design studio, and the 2 days were action-packed with brainstorming, iteration, concept refinement, and opportunities for feedback. Another great detail about the workshop is that industrial design students from Georgia Tech were on hand to sketch out and capture all of our great ideas. Now I want to quickly run you through the 6 different activities that we covered over the course of the 2 days. So the workshop kicked off with a morning-long brainstorming session. This was our opportunity to get to know our creative team and to generate as many ideas as we could around our area of the elections experience, the voting experience. I started out on the team that was developing solutions for marking the ballot, so ballot design and marking the ballot. Over lunch on the first day, we were encouraged to leave our teams and go and see what other teams had been coming up with and see what ideas they were generating. We also had a chance to vote with little sticky dots for ideas that we found compelling and worth exploring further. After lunch, we reconvened with our teams and we narrowed all of our ideas down to 2 different ideas that we wanted to think about and advance over the rest of the workshop. And in the afternoon, we refined our concepts. We did so first through the eyes of our personas and their scenarios, and then we looked at our ideas for the strengths and weaknesses. The second day kicked off with informal presentations to the rest of the creative teams, and this was our opportunity to gather feedback and questions. In the afternoon on the second day, we refined our concepts further. So first we took a look at our concepts for opportunities and obstacles, and we modified appropriately. And then we looked for alternatives in our concepts. Were there better or more creative ways to implement our ideas? The workshop wrapped up with presentations of all 4 creative teams. And at the end of the 2 days, we had 4 strong concepts that covered all the different areas of the voting experience. So you're probably eager to learn about one of the ideas that we came up with, and so I'd like to share with you the Universal Polling Place, which is essentially an enhanced voting center. And some of the details about the Universal Polling Place include accessible facilities and early voting. And this is to accommodate voters with disabilities that might not be able to make it to the voting center on election day, but would be able to get there in the few days leading up to the election. Also, new and improved training for poll workers and volunteers in the areas of customer service and triage so they could better handle the large crowds that would turn out on election day. And also a variety of different methods and technologies for marking the ballot to accommodate voters with different disabilities. Now in Washington, we are a vote-by-mail state, so this idea probably wouldn't pilot here. But I really liked some of the different areas that we explored as we put this concept together. For example, we thought about positive user experiences that we go through every day. Think Starbucks and the experience they create in their locations and how they replicate that experience over many different locations. We discussed world-class customer service and how it's implemented. We also discussed in-person services versus virtual services. So are there parts of the voting experience that can be taken care of before voters arrive at the polls? And finally, we worked in the need for gathering data on how the polling place was functioning and then iterating appropriately. So what's next? The workshop was actually one part of a multi-part effort to improve the voting experience for all citizens. IDEO, which is a design and innovation consultancy, held a crowdsourcing event on their open IDEO page, and this is where anybody could go and submit their idea for improving the voting experience. Ideas were voted upon, and winners were selected, and those winners are now working to advance their ideas. Also, 4 universities received funding to advance the effort and do more research in the areas of accessibility and elections. So let me circle back for a final moment to the methodology of the workshop. And to some of you, it might have sounded hauntingly familiar, and that's because it is. Essentially, it's the user-centered design process crammed into 2 action-packed days. And during those 2 days, we worked through research, concept, and design phases. We had a focus on our users throughout. Through all of those concept refinement sessions, we were iterating. The 32 attendees did a great job collaborating together, and the process was certainly scalable in that we did just a few activities over the course of 2 quick days. So in closing, the workshop was a wonderful reminder that user-centered design comes in so many shapes and sizes. Sometimes we have 6 months to get to the design phase, and in the case of the workshop, we had 2 days. Also, a diverse group of stakeholders can truly be a blessing. If you bring together passionate people with a clear and common goal, and you have a methodology for moving forward, you're on the right track. And finally, looping back to the theme of today, which is the usability of financial systems, I challenge you to be inspired and to think about what problems you see with financial systems, and to think about what skills you could bring to the table in solving these problems, and who you could partner with to do so. Maybe you've met some people here today that share your passion and would be interested in collaborating on that. And also, could the user-centered design process help to advance your solutions? Thank you.
You can stay up there. Yeah, thanks, Jenny. That is the great challenge. So thank you. And